Thank you, and welcome to the Patriots 300 level podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by my co-host Kevin. Welcome back for our 39th episode this week, where we'll be recapping last Sunday's game versus the Packers, previewing this upcoming game versus the Detroit Lions, and discussing news around the NFL. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pat's 300 level pod for up-to-the-minute updates and commentary on news of the day, as well as at our website at pats300levelpod.com. So, Kevin, Patriots unfortunately aren't able to pull out the win versus the Packers on the road, losing 27-24. Granted, it was closer than either of us had the game being, without us even knowing that Bailey Zappi was going to have to be the quarterback. What's your overall thoughts on how the game played out?
I think they played as well as you could have expected going into it. I think each of us didn't have them scoring as many points as they did. Obviously, some points on the turnovers. I think I had them 17-13. You were
I was 2013.
2013. So both same amount of points here. They did score a bit better. Obviously, one on the turnover. And I think, if you had more competent quarterback play, you could have definitely pulled us off where everyone's going to say, oh, Bailey Zappi went 10 for 15. He did really well. He had a touchdown. But the whole game plan was very, very shrunk down for him. They didn't ask him to do a lot in this game. They didn't really ask him to do really much at all. And when kind of push came to shove, when he needed to kind of make a play at the end, near the end of the game, in a few different scenarios, he ended up not really making a play, and then he kind of sensed pressure a little bit too much than there actually was. So we saw this in preseason. He was very jittery in the pocket. It wasn't as much so this game, but really in those big scenarios, that's where it happened, when he kind of fled when he didn't have to, and that's what caused an issue. So really disappointing they ended up eking out this win, because they had multiple opportunities to do it. But you have to feel good about this team. They keep on improving week after week. And you like to think with this kind of easy stretch coming in, they should hopefully have this good play turn into some wins.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. It's definitely a lot closer than I was expecting, even when I was thinking Hoyer, the Destroyer, was going to be QB. And even as the game went on, I had a feeling they just weren't going to pull it out. For me, it was a mix. It felt eerily similar, like a mix between the 2020 Chiefs game and the 2020 Seahawks game, where the Seahawks game, everyone was pretty much writing you off. Seahawks were one of the Super Bowl favorites that year, and you go into the game and you have a chance to win at the end, and you're just a yard short. But they were close throughout the entire game, and really much could have won on that last play. And then the Chiefs game a couple weeks later, where you're without Cam Newton, you have Hoyer the Destroyer, who shits his pants, and the defense shuts down the Chiefs, and you pretty much have a good shot. You don't have a good shot, but you're in it throughout the entire game, and you had a chance. So it kind of felt similar to that, where no one really gave you a chance in either of those games, and you made it close, but just wasn't enough to pull it out. I think it was definitely encouraging that they were able to keep it that close. They were able to take it into overtime, and they had their chances. They had their chances during the game and even in overtime to win it, but they were too much to overcome, and they just weren't able to pull it out.
And I think one of the things we can kind of get into now, because I don't see it on the list, but a lot of people are wondering, were they too conservative at the end? Were they too conservative really in their play calling altogether? What were your initial thoughts on that?
I don't think they were too conservative at all. I know people are saying you should have gone for it, or you should have let Zappi cook. But if you look at it, it was a very basic game plan. And what they did was they went with their strengths. They went with their running game, especially in overtime, and they were running to the left side, which was their strong point. And they just weren't. You have to give credit to Green Bay on that second down. It was 2nd and 5. And I think the linebacker or safety, I forgot which one, was able to read the play and just blew it up and no gain. And then if it was me personally, I would have run it again on 3rd down. And then if it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2, you run it. But I understand why you throw it there as well. So I understand both aspects of it. Since you threw it, you weren't able to gain any yards. 4th and 5, that's too much to ask for Zappi to get a completion on 4th down. Whereas if you don't get it. Say you go for it, you don't get it. Aaron Rodgers is getting the ball at the 45, has to go 15 yards. Whereas if you punt it away, your defense has been good throughout the most part of the game. Granted, towards the end of the game, so like it was pretty much every other drive they would hold them, and then every other drive they would score. But you're still trusting your defense more than you're trusting third string rookie quarterback that played D1 AA.
Yep. And the previous drive, they just had Aaron Rodgers go 3 and out. So it wasn't like they weren't stopping him at all. So it makes more sense where at that point it's 4th and 5. Zappy, and I'm trying to start working on a blog to kind of pinpoint 2 different areas where when everyone tries to say, oh, he was really good in this game, there were 2 big areas where he made some kind of crucial mistakes. There was a sack that he ended up taking where he could have hit a check down, but he held on to the ball way too long and ended up getting sacked. And that really kind of took them out of that whole drive, where if they hit the check down there, they would have only needed a couple of yards to get a first down. That could have continued the drive, and they could have gotten some points and won the game. Second one was that 3rd and 5 throw where he had Hunter Henry coming out. If he stepped into the throw and threw it right away in the pocket, stepped into the pocket, threw it, he would have had Hunter Henry for either a first down or a 4th and 1. And what he ended up doing was he got a little bit too jittery, tried to flee the pocket, and ended up running into pressure because of that. Whereas if he had just stepped up, he could have made the throw and hit him. So because of those, I could definitely see not throwing on 4th and 5. And then the other thing is, like you said, you have to play through your strengths. Running the game was your biggest strength in this game. You had the best running DVOA in the whole league. Packers had the worst running DVOA in the entire league.
Packers defense.
Yes, Packers defense had the worst, and you had the best. So it obviously makes sense why you want to run the ball. You were doing really well in the run. Yes, you got stopped on 2nd and 5, but what are the chances you're going to get stopped? Maybe 2 more times. So I could definitely see saying maybe they should have ran even more, and that's the complete opposite of what everyone else is saying. That it's solid, too conservative. You went with what worked best for you, and you're not going to go throwing it a million times because you can't trust them to do it. Because I would have to believe, and I lost more faith in Zappy after that big sack he took, where once you saw that happen, when Patricia saw that happen, or Bill saw that really happen, it's really Bill's call. He probably lost a lot of faith in saying, well, we can't try and put too much on him or else he may make a big mistake. Same as Hoyer. So the other thing too is, who knows if Hoyer was still in this game, could they have been even this close into it? He could have made some crucial mistakes. We don't really know.
I think that's one thing for Zappy that my comments so far, you might not be able to assess it, but I think he played as well as you could possibly expect him to play. He didn't make any mistakes, or didn't make any game-ending mistakes or crucial mistakes. He did enough. He did what was asked of him. If I knew that there was no Hoyer was out, you told me that he went 10 of 15, 99 yards, no interceptions, 1 touchdown, I wouldn't have expected that, especially considering Joe Judge early last week was saying that when someone asked if Zappy was going to be ready to be a backup this week, he said that's asking a lot of him. And it's no knock on him. He's coming from really 1 year playing in D1 AA, where he had a really good year, but going from that level to this level of competition and the amount of reps he's gotten as 3rd string, it's just asking a lot. And he played as well as you could have asked, but I don't think you could have really expected him to do any more.
And it's the other thing too. It's not like the other thing people saying, oh, he was lighting up. It's not like his throws were that great either. He lobbed a bunch of them in there where if he hit them more on kind of a line drive, they would have actually been better off that way. We talked about the running game a little bit. Anything else you want to really mention on that?
No, I think it's just that's what, especially this upcoming week and the next couple of weeks, if Mac and Mac especially, if he's out or if he's very banged up, you're going to have to rely on your running game. And Harris and Stevenson are both pretty much what you're expected. They're getting both of them about 60 yards a game each. One of them will get a touchdown, averaging around 150 yards a game. So you just have to keep relying on them. Offensive line outside of Isaiah Wynn has been holding up. And then Harris this game, 18 carries, 86 yards a touchdown, 4.8 yards per carry. Stevenson, 14 carries, 66 yards, 4.7 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
So you just keep relying on them. If you're getting into 2nd and 5 pretty much every single down, that's giving you more options, whereas you only have 2 plays to get 5 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something where you don't have to rely as much on your quarterback. If you don't have Mac back there, even if you do have Mac, you want them to be getting that amount, but without him, especially, you're going to need to really rely on that running game.
That makes a lot of sense. And kind of moving on to the opposite side of the field.
Yeah.
The linebacker core, where we had talked about in the I think the preseason podcast, the draft podcast, a bunch of different podcasts. There's probably three to four out there saying that they don't need to draft a linebacker. They've got everything in house that they needed, and this is kind of what Bill was probably thinking too. And what we've seen over the last 4 weeks, maybe they don't. So McMillan, week 1 starter. Now he's only playing special teams. He has been hurt, so I'm hoping that is maybe the case. Why he may be getting some limited reps just to get out there. Malk Wilson's looked completely schizophrenic. He'll look really good sometimes. He'll look really, really bad other times. Cam McGrone, who Matt Groh was saying that he's basically a draft pick this year, is on the practice squad. And again, I think he's going to need that extra year just to recover from his knee. He didn't look like in the preseason he was up to speed yet. It didn't look like his knee was ready. And maybe he's still right. Maybe it's one more year of him in the practice squad, kind of resting up. He hasn't even really been playing. I think he's still been hurt. So we're probably not going to. We still may see him next year, or he may light it up then. It may be,
or maybe even by the end of the year too. But
so it may not be all kind of. I'm not counting him out yet, just because ACL is really tough to come back. Not everyone comes back as fast as some of these wide receivers do. And some of these big names do. And then Uche, who both of us really like a lot. And it's just trying to find the spot for him where he doesn't really hold up well against the run. And you know how Bill, he's not going to put you out there unless you can kind of really do both. So if he can't do both, you're really just going to be that kind of niche rushing the passer scenario. He's played 58 snaps through 4 games. That's about 14 and a half per game. And then Jennings has only done 50 snaps, which is even less than both of you and me had him as the kind of season pick for kind of comeback play of the year MVP.
I initially did. You thought he wasn't gonna make the team. Then at the end of the preseason, you were on the Jennings bandwagon.
So big thing here, Jamie Collins ended up coming in, signing into the practice squad just for more depth, just because I don't think they really trust what they have right now. So there's a couple things looking at this, and then I'll ask you just a little bit of your thoughts. One, they gotta have to start playing better. Mac Wilson, though, this is his 4th year in the league, and he never was great with the Browns. He was really kind of drafted maybe a year too early. A lot of people in Alabama were surprised and kind of frustrated that he left after his 3rd year instead of staying one more year. They thought that was going to benefit him. So maybe he just needs more development, and maybe he'll get that here, and maybe he'll improve after a few weeks. And it's only been 4 weeks, so it's not like it's halfway through the season. So he still has a chance to improve. McMillan maybe has a chance to improve if it's injury wise. If this doesn't happen, you have to kind of look for another plan. And the other plan, I don't think is really Jamie Collins playing 50 snaps a game, because I don't think he's fast enough. I don't think he's quick enough. And I think this is where we've also talked about their safety group is really strong. This is where you need to get that safety group basically acting as linebackers. Duggar's basically a linebacker anyway. But then maybe using Duggar and Peppers, and even Peppers has kind of not really looked that great. It was either the last game of the game, I think last game, where you got to kind of get confused a little bit, but using them more in that aspect to maybe hide the fact that maybe your linebacker core isn't as deep as you thought it initially was.
No, I agree. And that's the weird thing is the first 2 weeks of the season, they were very good against the run. Granted, Dolphins don't have a great running attack, but they held them to 65 rushing yards. Chase Edmonds, 12 carries, 25 yards. Raheem Mostert, 5 carries, 16 yards. Week 2 against the Steelers, against Najee Harris, 15 carries, 49 yards, 3.3 yards per carry. So they did really well. And then it's just the last 2 weeks, which I know last week was a little bit of an anomaly where you're going up against Lamar Jackson. And as the game went on, they kind of made some bad mistakes. But the last 2 weeks, you've given up 387 yards or yards overall.
Mm-hmm.
So just under 190 yards or just over 190 yards a game. And then Aaron Jones this week, 16 carries, 110 yards. AJ Dillon, 17 carries, 73 yards. So just when you were pretty much limiting Aaron Rodgers this week, it's the running attack that pretty much killed you in the end. And that's sort of what we saw the end of last season too, and the year before, where it's just teams running attacks is what ended up killing you, where your pass defense was able to hold up just enough outside of the Bills games last year, but the running game is what killed you. And that's something that you have to, your defensive backs have really stepped up so far, but that's, I guess, the biggest question mark, which some people had as the biggest question mark for the Pats, but I didn't really have the linebackers as big, especially considering the safety group that you have that can play as linebackers too.
Yep. And then to note, Lawrence Guy was out last game, and he was out for half of the Ravens game, but still, that's just one guy.
And from everything that it's looking, all the analyst reports and everything, it's more not that the defensive line is getting manhandled. It's more the linebackers at that second level that just aren't making plays, aren't making the right reads. And that's more of where the weaknesses were, not where you're getting manhandled at the line, where some of it was a little bit where with Lawrence Guy out, you had to have Christian Barmore in against the run, and he wasn't great. And overall this year hasn't been as good as he was last year. But overall, from everything that I've seen, the plays I've seen, along with what the analysts have been saying, it's more the linebackers at that second level.
Yep. All right. Moving on, 3 up, 3 down. Who's your first one? We can kind of go back and forth.
My first one is the Patriots offensive line minus Isaiah Wynn. I thought that they held up really well. Granted, Isaiah Wynn had the toughest challenge going up against Gary of the Packers, who has really had a standout year so far. But even still, outside of him, Cole Strange, in my opinion, had his best game of the season. Michael Onwenu, every single game has just been your dependable offensive lineman. Trent Brown was really, really good. I think he was graded the 4th best in pass protection this week in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. So your offensive line really held up for the most part outside that right side. And then even Marcus Cannon, when he came in, really played well, especially considering he hasn't really played as much the past few years.
Yep. So mine first 3 up, 3 down was Harris and Stevenson, the whole running back group.
Yeah.
I thought we kind of really talked about this. They played really well, almost 5 yards of carry for each one. They're the strength of this game. They were the two that kept this game close, and without them, they wouldn't have been the place that they were. So the two of them, the kind of the two-head monster.
Yep, that's who I had for my second up was just Harrison Stevenson. Just repeating, Harris, 86 yards, 1 touchdown, 4.8 yards per carry. Stevenson, 66 yards, 4.7 yards per carry. So pretty much the two-headed monster that you thought they were going to be going into the year. They've really, the past few weeks, have really stepped up.
Yep. So my next one, Trent Brown, kind of mimics the offensive line. He was by far the best offensive lineman that they had this week. And given props because after week 1, we were kind of trashing him a little bit and saying that you need to improve. And he's been much improved ever since week 1. So maybe it was the heat. I mean, he's a big boy, so maybe it was just that. He's looked a lot better though since then.
Yep, I agree. My third up was a little bit of a outside out of the Lions guy, Marcus Jones. First 3 weeks, Miles Bryant has been having me pull my hair out every time he tries to return a punt. This week, you just stuck with Marcus Jones, 2 punt returns, 49 yards, 24.5 yards per return, 4 kick returns, 111 yards, 28 yards per return. This is pretty much where you're expecting Marcus Jones to be contributing to this Patriots team this year. And the first 3 weeks, we didn't really see much, but this is what they really drafted him for, especially with losing Gunnar Olszewski, who was a all-pro punt returner. So really helped with the field position, especially in a game where you didn't have a quarterback really. You really needed as much of a field position advantage as you could get, and he was able to provide it. And hopefully that's something that he's able to do the next few weeks, especially if Mac is still out.
Yep. I didn't have him, but I thought that was he was kind of one of those honorable mention pieces. And who knows, maybe we might be seeing a little bit more when I talk about one of my downs.
Yeah.
So my next one was Matt Judon. He's been the Patriots' best defender this whole year so far.
Uh,
Played
I'd still go. He didn't have as good of a week, but I think Dietrich Wise has been their best defender this year.
Yeah, but well, a lot of they're trying to take away Matt Judon more than
That's
Dietrich
fair.
Wise. So, but he's been playing really well. And then honorable mention, Jack Jones, just because they didn't put him in the full 3-up, just because he did have some problems tackling.
Yeah.
And some of the run defense, they kept running at him, and he's a smaller dude. On those pass defenses, he can jump routes. We saw this in the preseason. We saw it in training camp. He's got very, very good instincts, and that's going to only improve as he goes on with the Patriots. So he seems he's got that kind of J.C. Jackson kind of eye for the ball, and that's not really something you could always teach. It's something that people are born with. So I think he's only going to get better. So just honorable mention to him. And then I never put the honorable mention for Marcus Jones, but I could see him being in there too. Three down.
Just going on Jack Jones, for instance, especially since we didn't talk about him during really the recap, was I thought he had an incredible game pass coverage, where he was just reading routes. And this is something that we've seen all camp, all year. And he's someone that can really step up and possibly be that starting outside cornerback, which can move Jonathan Jones inside to kind of take away what's been a limitation with Miles Bryant. But the thing why I didn't have him in my 3-up was there were the Packers' first touchdown drive. There were 2 runs to his side where he just made terrible reads or terrible approaches to the run and just allow the guy to get a first down. And then on the touchdown too, where it was just a bad approach and bad tackling. And then later on, there was another time where he went for a tackle, and instead of going for that tackle, he went for the strip and then just completely whiffed and allowed the guy to get another first down. And that's something that we've seen him where he's more of a high risk, high reward type of guy. And that's something that he was in college too, where earlier in the game, he was able to get that forced fumble and he recovered. But if you go for only the forced fumble and miss, that could be turned into a big play. And that's something that the Patriots usually have some of the best cornerbacks at tackling. Malcolm Butler, J.C. Jackson was pretty good. And that's something that he's going to have to get better if he's going to be on the field as much as you want him to be being a starting cornerback.
Yep. Yeah, completely fair. Some of those kind of misreads is why I didn't have him fully in the 3-up, but wanted to mention him just because he is a rookie. He made some 2 big plays that kept him in the game. So on to 3 downs. Who's your first one? I think we all know
I think we both have the if you don't have him as your number 1 down, I think you weren't watching this game, aka Albert Breer. Isaiah Wynn, just absolutely atrocious. 2 sacks allowed, including the sack that got Hoyer concussed, and then the strip sack as well on Bailey Zappi. 2 sacks allowed, 1 hit, 2 penalties, a hold, and a false start. That's 6 penalties in his last 3 games. And a lot of times those penalties are big drive killers. And he's just been awful this year. He's been better in the run at least, which is good, but in pass, which is what you really need him, especially with younger quarterbacks. He just hasn't been good. And if they're not going with Marcus Cannon this week, they have to have a really short leash on Isaiah Wynn. And I think the one thing with Cannon is his conditioning at this point in the season good enough where he can hold up for an entire game for the rest of the season, or is he someone where you have to go with Wynn because Cannon can't make it through an entire game? But Isaiah Wynn has just been awful this year.
Yep, there's you kind of covered it. There's not really much to say other than he got Hoyer taken out of the game. He almost got Zappy taken out of the game too with
Yeah.
that hit that ended up causing the strip sack. I think it was even more violent than the
Yeah.
hit that ended up getting Hoyer taken out. So
Yep.
he almost caused both your quarterbacks to get hurt in the game. He's been a complete liability in the pass protection game pretty much this whole season, and he needs to. The only saving grace for him, like you said, would be if Marcus Cannon maybe isn't conditioned. He is 34, I think, and he hasn't played in a year and a half. So can he make it
Yeah.
through
34.
not only a full game like this upcoming game, but could he make it through a full game for 13 more games?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. And maybe that's the thing where you say, try and see what happens, put him in there. Worst case, he gets hurt, and then it's either win or Kajus will be healthy by then.
Don't say worst thing he's hurt.
What?
You said worst thing he's hurt.
Worst case scenario, he gets hurt, and then
Yeah.
you put in win or
Yeah. I was gonna say I thought you were gonna say like worst case, like you have to take him out because he can't make it through a game and then you go back to win or something like that. But
no, yeah, worst case he gets hurt and then you put someone else in.
yeah.
But,
Okay, fair enough.
all right, next one. Who we both have.
Jake Bailey, who he had a good first couple of weeks, but this was just awful.
Mhm.
2 punts that ended up being touchbacks. There was another punt where you really needed to pin the Packers deep, and he had what I think 31-yard punt or something like that. Maybe even less than that. He's just not been. I don't know what the heck is wrong with him. Hoping it was just a bad week this week and he gets back to his usual self next week. But especially considering that they signed him to an extension, I think 4-year extension. We all thought that it was just injuries last year, and you can't keep getting that type of production out of your punter where I know his average yards isn't high this year, the first 3 weeks, especially, but that's because they're punting near midfield and he was getting inside the 20. But this game, he just was awful in all aspects of punting.
Yep. Yeah, he was bad, and he really hurt them where they need a good punter there. And I think even last week, I don't think he was good either. I think he hit a couple. He's had more touchbacks this year than you would like to see.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it wasn't just this game. Next one that you got.
Just Patriots linebackers overall. In a game where you really limited Aaron Rodgers for the most part. I mean, towards the end of the game, Aaron Rodgers got his, but you couldn't have asked for Aaron Rodgers playing 70 minutes to only throw for 250 yards and I think 1 touchdown, two touchdowns. But you can't really ask your defense to do more than that. But it's your linebackers and allowing the Packers running backs to just keep them in the game. And they were just awful this week. Linebackers were awful last week too.
Yep. I had Mac Wilson. Mac Wilson was very bad, and you could say really any of the linebackers. So we'll go from there. 5 questions with us. First question: what alternative uniform that teams are wearing this year is your favorite, not counting the Patriots throwbacks?
So since it is throwback week this week, hence why I'm wearing my red Patriots jersey. I would go with the Patriots, which I think is the best uniform in all of sports. But since I can't, I'd have to go with the Bengals all white jersey, followed by the Falcons black jersey with the old school red helmets.
Yep, I would say the Bengals one is by far my most favorite one. It's very clean, very crisp looking. Like it looks like one of those like white like show Bengals thing. Very awesome looking. My second favorite one, if we're going to do seconds, would be the Jets with that light. I don't know how to describe that green color, but that should be their jersey all the time. I really like that color green.
Well, that's fair.
Next question. If Bill had Aaron Rodgers, how many Super Bowls would he won? Because we saw Bill slobber over Aaron, not only throughout the week talking about him, but pre-game, he was basically looking he was going to make out with him. End of game, basically doing the same thing. I've never seen him look at a quarterback the way he looks at Aaron Rodgers. This isn't the only year he does it. Every time that he talks about Rodgers, he slobbers over him. So he absolutely loves him, which I don't know why, but he does. So let's say he had it his way. Let's say he's the same age as Tom, just to make it easier. And let's say Rodgers was here the whole time. How many rings would Bill have with Rodgers?
If it's through, say you had Aaron Rodgers starting in 2001 through now.
Yep. Let's just say they started in 2001.
I'd have to go with probably 4. I think the initial way you were asking this question, how I interpreted it initially when I read it, was when Aaron Rodgers took over as starter, whenever that was. I think 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
How many would he have won? And my thought was Brady in that time with the Patriots won 3, and I don't think he would have won 3, so I would have gone with 2
All right, that's
if
fair.
he took over from then.
And
I don't think Aaron Rodgers would have lasted that long, because I think he would have butted heads with Bill, which is why if he lasted the entire time, I could say 4. But if I think it would be less than that, because I think his ego would get in the way and he'd want out, or Bill would trade him because he can't stand him, especially if he's changing the play deliberately at the line or something like that.
Yep, I would say the 1 or 2 Super Bowls, because I think he'd be gone before 2010. I think he would have, assuming the same sort of kind of length that he's played. So
yeah,
I just made it as 2001 just to make it easier on my brain because of time.
Yeah.
So I'd say 1 or 2, and that'd be it. I don't think he would stay the whole time.
Okay, so the third question: if Jarrett Stidham was the Patriots' third string quarterback this year, like he was last year, say they didn't trade him to Vegas, and he went in for the Patriots when Hoyer got hurt, would the Patriots have won this week?
Nope, they would have been even probably worse off.
Yep, I agree completely. That's why I asked, because I think he would have thrown a pick 6, which is his customary, his bread and butter, and they wouldn't have made it to overtime.
Yeah, I think with his whole passing career with the Patriots, I think he had a 50% completion percentage and a 50% interception rate or something crazy like that. So, or an interception every game that he was in, something crazy. So, no, I think he's way too jittery, maybe even more so than Zappy.
Yeah.
Last question. Actually, no, second to last question. If Mack and Hoyer are unable to go, who will you want to play, Zappy or Gilbert this week?
It's closer than you would think, but I would go with Zappy just because he's been in the system this whole camp and everything. The Patriots have seen him. Apparently, what Kendrick Bourne was saying was last week they split the reps evenly with Zappy and Hoyer. In the instance that Hoyer got hurt or something happened, I think just because I think that's just showing Bill's greatness, where Hoyer has enough reps over his 14 years and 7 years with the Patriots to know the system, but Zappy doesn't. So I think that's something that went under the radar, where Zappy was able to get enough reps. But like you saw, granted, part of it was he went into the game where he wasn't prepared to really play, and he did good enough, but it was a really, really toned down offense where you weren't asking him to really do anything. I think this week, if he was to start, you'd ask him to do a little more. But again, it's pretty much just don't lose the game for us, and we'll have our other players try and win the game, where it's our running backs or it's short screens or reverses, things like that. But I part of the reason why it's closer than most people are saying, oh, you go with Zappy, because he has that upside. But Gilbert's in his third stint with the Patriots. He was on the practice squad last year. He was on it previously. He's had 2 career spot starts where he actually played pretty serviceable. 2020 with the Cowboys, they lost to the Steelers 24-19. He was 21 of 38, 243 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Last year with the Redskins entire QB room went down with COVID the week leading up to the game. So they signed Gilbert off the Patriots practice squad. He had less than a week rep in the Redskins system, and they lost by 10, 27-17, but he went 20 of 31 with 194 yards, 0 TDs, 0 interceptions. I don't know if you're asking if Zappy was to start this week. Granted, it's the Lions' future defense, but are you expecting him to go 250 yards and a touchdown? I don't know if you can ask for that much.
Against the Lions, I think he may feel he's back in Division One AA.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah, but that's the thing where Gilbert has showed serviceable and he knows the system. But I think you go with Zappy.
Yeah, I think he goes Zappy just because he's at least been in the system this year. The other thing, kind of about taking 50% of the reps, one, like you said, Hoyer's had some experience. 2, Zappy's had pretty much no reps ever since training camp, because it's Hoyer and Mac during the season, and then Zappy's the one running the scout team.
Yep.
And then 3, you kind of got to worry about, God forbid Hoyer does puke on himself and you need to bench him like they had to in Kansas City. What the hell is Zappy going to do if you need to bench him? So I think there were kind of a few different reasons for that. I still think Bill probably has it in the back of his mind. But I think that was the reason. But yeah, I'd go Zappy. And then last one, non-football question, but have to throw out there because of some of the news that's going around this last week. Who is your single season home run champion?
Barry Bonds, no question about it. Because not only most people were doing steroids during that era, including the pitchers, but also he hit 73 in a season where he walked 177 times. It's not like Aaron Judge's where he walked less than 100 times and he got so many at bats. He didn't get as many at bats, even though he had a lot of plate appearances, just because of how many times he walked, because pitchers were afraid of facing him.
Yep. I'd say until Barry Bonds, 73 home runs, until Aaron Judge beats that. He's basically just an AFC home run leader. And before this year, who has ever cared about conference records? No one. Everyone's trying to bring that up just because they don't want Barry Bonds to be considered the home run champion. And, he is. He's 73 home runs. You don't know if Aaron Judge has actually taken anything. So you can't go saying he's fully clean. He maybe is, maybe he isn't. No one really knows.
Look
honestly,
at
who cares?
For all we know.
Yeah,
unfortunately. But
and honestly, who really cares? The baseball made so much money and grew the game because of steroids, and now they want to take it away from it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So Barry Bonds is number one until someone beats him. He's going to be number one.
If Judge signs with the Red Sox this offseason and plays at Fenway, maybe he could do it. But until someone does,
Yep, exactly. We usually do news around the NFL. We're going to try and skip that today, just to keep this pod moving. Just quick thing, Tua. He's not playing this week. Could have his brain blown out from what happened. But on to the Lions. 1-3 this year. A historically bad defense. I've never seen someone put up this many points and lose almost every single week. And I think they lead the league in points.
They do.
But they also lead the league in points allowed. Yeah. So I've never seen this happen before. I think it's kind of an aberration though too, because looking at the teams they went up against, none of them are great. And I'd like to think the Patriots are going to be able to stop some of this offense, especially because they know how to handle Jared Goff.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is their most yards allowed in the NFL, 445 yards per game allowed, third worst passing yards allowed, third worst rushing yards allowed, most points allowed, where they're allowing 35.3 points per game. They're scoring 35 points per game themselves. They lead the league in passing yards on offense, but again, like you said, they haven't really gone up against really great defenses. So I think that's part of the issue, or part of the mirage. So it's definitely going to be an interesting week. You'd hope that this is the game where the Patriots can win and kind of start to right the ship, especially with the easier schedule where theoretically, if you want to make the playoffs, they have 7 games coming up that they should win at least 6 of. Hopefully you win all 7, considering how tough your last 6 games are. And without Mac, it's going to be tougher, assuming Mac doesn't play, which reports are he's going to try his hardest to play, and he thinks in his mind he can play. But this is a team that even without Mac, you should have a chance to beat. They do have an explosive offense, but they're very, very banged up. Right now, we're filming on Wednesday. So today's practice, which is Wednesday, their running back DeAndre Swift didn't practice. And last week, Campbell said he's probably going to be held out until after the bye. So he's probably not playing. Their top 3 wide receivers didn't practice, and 4 of their top 5, including Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been very good the last 2 years, and DJ Chark, Josh Reynolds. And then their tight end 1, TJ Hawkinson, didn't practice. And then both their centers didn't practice. So they're very banged up as well. And that's something that can play to the Patriots' favor if some of these key players don't end up playing. I think you have to go into the game assuming that they're going to play. And if they do, you're going up against some good players, whereas Amon-Ra St. Brown is you could argue is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL right now, and he's only in his second year. Hawkinson's one of the best tight ends in football, so you definitely have a tough task at hand as the defense, but I think with Jared Goff as
Mhm.
quarterback, that's something that can at least go in the Patriots' favor.
Yep. And then based on we kind of talk about a lot of almost every week, you got to take away the top one or two kind of targets and see if everyone else can win. The last few weeks when we've done this, the Patriots haven't done it, and that's
Yeah.
kind of why they lost. Assuming Swift is out, who would you say the top two guys you got to take away?
And you got to take away Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you got to take away Hawkinson.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think if Duggar played last time, so I think with Duggar and or Phillips, they should be able to take out Hawkinson or limit Hawkinson at least a little bit. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's the biggest guy that you really have to stop. And let me see, I have their stats up. Where was it? St. Brown he's 23 catches, 253 yards, 3 TDs. Hawkinson, 18 catches, 261 yards, 3 TDs. Josh Reynolds, 17 catches, 243 yards, 2 TDs. So you have some guys there, and even if Swift doesn't play at running back, you still have a very good running back in Jamal Williams, who's 6 rushing touchdowns so far through 4 games. And the Patriots linebackers at running back or against the run hasn't been good. So even without Swift, you still have your hands full with a good running back in Williams. So I think the 2 big ones obviously are St. Brown and Hawkinson, but there's some other guys you really have to also, they can beat you if you're not able to take them out too.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And we kind of already touched on the Goff aspect. The Patriots have faced them 3 times and have done pretty well against them. But the last game that they played, he ended up getting the win, but it really wasn't because of him. So
Yeah.
you could say they really shut him down 3 times. One of the times was without some good coaching. That was on that really bad Rams team. But like to say, I think they can find a way to shut him down again.
And
thoughts?
the thing with Goff, where a lot of people are thinking maybe this is a resurrection of Goff's career, but if you look at it like stat wise, it's very similar, or yards per game, TD per game, everything. It's very similar to the 2018 season where he led the Rams to the Super Bowl, but he's also going. Excuse me. In the Super Bowl, he was awful, which is part of the reason why the Patriots were able to win. But also this year, he hasn't really gone up against really many good defenses. And this is a quarterback that last year, it was on 4th down when they were trying to win the game, he threw the ball away instead of getting sacked or a hit, where it's 4th down. If you throw the ball away, it's the same thing as getting a sack. So he doesn't have good football IQ. And this is something where if you throw out an amoeba style defense, he's someone that you can confuse, especially where when he was with the Rams, he had Sean McVay, who would pretty much tell him what the defense he was looking at was going to do. Whereas he doesn't have that same type of coaching in Detroit. And I think that even though he's had good numbers this year, I'm expecting him to have a bad game this week. But who knows? Maybe we've been wrong sometimes so far. So
I'm wrong a lot.
I'm not expecting a big week from Goff, and I'm expecting if the Lions are to have a big week, it's more from Jamal Williams.
All right. Moving on to the predictions. Right now, the Patriots are favored -3. The over-under is 45.5 by the Rhode Island Sportsbook. I'm going to go ahead and say that the Patriots are going to win this one. They're going to start a little winning streak, 31-17. Even if Bailey Zappi has to play, it's going to be a lot of the running game, and they'll find some ways to get some points. There may be a turnover, a pick 6, or a turnover, and a good area for the Patriots to make some scores. So I think it'll be heavy on the run again this week, and I think they'll score each week. They've improved on their scoring, so I think they'll prove again, 31-17.
So I'm going to give 2 caveats. I'm going to make a prediction where if Mac Jones plays and starts and isn't, or just if he starts and plays, Patriots win 31-13. If Bailey Zappi plays and starts in place of him, I say Patriots win 23 to 16.
All right, that's fair. And really the only thing, the kind of last thing talking about weather for the game. Probably should have talked about this before the score, but Lions are
Yeah.
a dome team, playing the dome all year so far, so they haven't experienced the outside. It's gonna be a little bit blustery out. 61. It's cold right now for the time of year. Even though the last couple of days has been the 50s up here in the Northeast. Mostly sunny, wind about 11 miles per hour, so that may affect them as well. Where
But not much. Like
mhm.
when I saw that, I was hoping maybe it'll be like 40 or raining or something like that.
Mhm.
But 61 with 11-mile-an-hour winds, like it's a little cold or a little
Mhm.
bit of a wind, but it's not going to be that much of an effect on a dome
Yeah,
team.
yeah, it shouldn't be that bad, but I'll be up there 300s and I get to see it in person again. So we'll have the news and kind of over the head view of how everything's going. But other than that, I think this is the end of the episode that we have for this week. So hopefully the Patriots end up edging out a victory this week, and we'll see what happens. We'll talk to you guys next week. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter at Pat's 300 Level Pod. And then our website, Pats300levelpod.com. And again, we're on YouTube as well. Subscribe, rate, and review there as well. Leave some comments if you have any questions, concerns, anything you want to debate us on. We'll be sure to take a look at those. So talk to you guys next week. Have a good one.